Thank you, Mr. Speaker. By the time the House next meets for questions, many people will have started their New Year's resolutions, and for many, that resolution will be to give up smoking. Given that Public Health England has recently stated that e-cigarettes are 95% safer than tobacco, and half of the population is unaware of that fact, will the Prime Minister join me in highlighting the role that e-cigarettes can play in helping people give up tobacco for good?
Well, certainly as someone who's been through this battle a number of times, eventually relatively successfully, lots of people find different ways of doing it, and clearly for some people e-cigarettes are successful. I think we do need to be guided by the experts. We should look at the report from Public Health England, but it is promising to see that over 1 million people are estimated to have used e-cigarettes to help them quit, or have replaced smoking with e-cigarettes completely. So I think we should be making clear that this is a very legitimate path for many people to improve their health and therefore the health of the nation.
Until 7 years ago, it was quite normal to see people smoking away in restaurants and pubs. Then it was banned. Now, cigarettes in public places are making something of a comeback, albeit with a twist. This is vaping, using an electronic cigarette to produce a nicotine-rich vapor instead of burning tobacco. But are they bad for you? In the last 2 years alone, the number of people using them has trebled to over 2 million. They're legal inside most public buildings, and you can even see people vaping in offices. The debates rage about their possible effects on our health. It's a very emotive subject, so I want to look at the evidence from a medical point of view. The first thing to understand is that smoking and vaping are very different. Smoking burns tobacco to release a large dose of addictive nicotine very quickly. But nicotine's not the major problem. Alongside it comes a cocktail of around 4,000 toxic chemicals, increasing the risk of cancer, heart disease and other serious illnesses. Electronic cigarettes heat up a cartridge of liquid to form a vapor, which can be inhaled instead of smoke. This vapor contains a nicotine hit, along with flavourings and other chemicals. In the UK, there are plans to regulate some e-cigarettes, depending on the nicotine content and the claims made for them. This should ensure tighter controls on what they contain. Now, the manufacturers of e-cigarettes obviously claim that they are much safer than normal cigarettes. But are they? We thought it would be interesting to test normal cigarette smokers and those who use e-cigarettes and find out exactly what's going on inside their bodies. We've taken samples of saliva, urine and breath from a range of vapors and a group of smokers. And we've done the same test to look at the risks of passive vaping. First, nicotine levels. We found that vapors get a similar dose of nicotine to smokers. Now for the test on the real nasties. Carbon monoxide, associated with heart disease, and acrolein, associated with cancer and lung problems. Here, the vapors had significantly lower levels, similar to those found in non-smokers. As for the risk from passive vaping, our test found no evidence that the vapor was affecting people nearby. Despite the evidence from our small-scale tests and other bigger studies, I still can't quite get rid of my gut feeling that because cigarettes are so harmful, there might be some hidden dangers lurking in e-cigarettes. Professor Peter Hayek, Director of the Tobacco Dependence Research Unit at Queen Mary University of London, has been looking into e-cigarettes in detail. Electronic cigarettes have only been around for a short while. Is there some long-term risks we're not aware of?
I think we can't exclude it altogether. I suppose some of the flavorings in e-cigarettes may turn up to be a danger. There may be risks for some people with lung issues. I think they are unlikely. If there is a danger, it's likely to be a small fraction of a danger of smoking.
What about the addictive qualities of nicotine? Because obviously they're still getting nicotine, they're not getting the other toxins. Are there dangers associated with that?
There are. Nicotine is an addictive substance, and the proportion of people who use nicotine will become hooked. A lot of people drink coffee, right? You've got a coffee cup in front of you. I've got one.
Yeah.
A lot of people are hooked on coffee, and nicotine use would be roughly in the same category if there were no other toxic chemicals which accompany it.
Do you think that e-cigarettes are a big change?
I think they could be a revolutionary change. I think they have a potential to basically eradicate smoking-related disease and death on the population scale.
What I've seen and heard in making this film is beginning to make me rethink my opinion about e-cigarettes. But their effects on our body are only part of the picture. There are fears that allowing widespread use of e-cigarettes would make the consumption of nicotine an everyday sight again. Already there are stories of children as young as 11 trying them. The British Medical Association is calling for a ban in public places. Now, I do agree that you need to be very cautious about anything that makes it easier to consume an addictive drug like nicotine. But considering cigarettes kill half the people who use them, if I was a cigarette smoker, I'd certainly give e-cigarettes a go.
They're vaping, not smoking, and they're not alone. New figures today show the number of people using e-cigarettes in the UK has trebled in 2 years to 2.1 million.
I smoked for years, and this is potentially better for you, I guess. You know, you haven't got any tar.
When you're smoking an e-cig, you just get just nicotine and nothing else.
Despite the enthusiasm here, the British Medical Association and the World Health Organization have recommended banning e-cigarettes in public places. They say there isn't enough evidence that they're safe or effective. Queen Mary University in London. Ian is having the levels of carbon monoxide in his body tested.
That's showing a 4 there, so that's a non-smoker reading. Non-smokers
Ian now uses an e-cigarette. It works by heating liquid nicotine into a vapour, which is then inhaled. The test is overseen by Professor Peter Hayek.
Many people out there think that nicotine itself is a dangerous poison, but if nicotine is taken without the accompanying toxicants, then the health effects would be very similar to drinking coffee.
That's a 4, so that's the exact same reading as before the e-cigarette.
So e-cigarettes contain no discernible toxins or carbon monoxide. The final test, what reading will Ian get after having a normal cigarette?
So you've got a 10 there, so that's officially a smoker reading.
Experts say e-cigarettes are orders of magnitude safer than normal cigarettes, but do they work? Professor Robert West is one of the country's leading addiction experts. He studied 5,000 people who were using different methods to try and stop smoking: patches, gum, e-cigarettes and nothing. His results are published next month.
What we found was that those who were using the e-cigarettes were about 60% more likely still not to be smoking than those who used either the licensed product or nothing at all.
Despite that evidence, serious concerns remain. Does the marketing of e-cigarettes make them attractive to children? One study last year found 12% of 14 to 17-year-olds had tried them.
We already have data which can actually check this worry. If a child tries a conventional cigarette, there's a 50% chance that they will become daily users. If a child tries e-cigarettes, so far we have no evidence that they progress to regular use.
There are other worries. The Welsh government says e-cigarettes glamorise and will re-normalise smoking. They've proposed a ban in enclosed public places.
No question that someone, looking at someone using that and thinking they're smoking. So you've got to think, well, okay, so it's not dangerous to be near someone who's using an electronic cigarette. There's really no evidence and actually very little reason to believe that it's going to re-normalise smoking. So what's the problem?
The problem in the end may simply be the word e-cigarette, the vapour that looks like smoke, a sense that they just don't feel right.
I can understand people wanting to be cautious, but if we fail to take this opportunity that electronic cigarettes potentially are providing, then we're really condemning people to death who would otherwise have lived. That's what's at stake.
Nonetheless, regulators are clamping down on e-cigarettes. Concerns remain about safety, efficacy and limited regulation.